Welcome, Nikolai. Welcome, Jen. Right. I'll let everyone join in as we run things here. Check. Right. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Thriving Dentist Expert Panel. We are an organization dedicated to helping dental professionals run practices that are as healthy as their patients. And tonight we are tackling one of the most talked about topics in the industry, our session, AI in your dental practice right now, what's working, what's hype, and of course, what to do next. This isn't about the distant future. It's really about the tools you can use to stop revenue leaks and reduce staff burnout tomorrow. I'm your moderator, Dan Adisha, and over the next 60 minutes, we are going to strip away the jargon and uncover practical AI roadmap for your practice. A quick housekeeping note on how tonight works. We are recording, so you will receive a replay link after the session to share with your partners. That being said, do not let that make you passive because the real value is happening right here, right now, live in this room in the next hour. So go ahead and use that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen for questions to the panelists, or else you can use the chat to conversate with your uh, colleagues here. And of course, I'll have my eye on both the feeds throughout the evening. And so, right. Now, this event is made possible by our sponsor, Equa Marketing, founded by Naren Arul Raja, the very same co-host of the Thriving Dentist podcast, alongside Gary Takas. And for 18 years, Equa has been one of the most trusted digital marketing organizations in healthcare, currently supporting over 500 practices across the globe. They specialize in helping you stay visible in an increasingly crowded market. And I have here a quick tip from our team at Equa. When potential patients in your area search for treatments you offer, does your practice actually show up as the trusted choice? Or are they finding your competitors instead? So practices attract the wrong patients, the price shopper, the insurance only caller, instead of the long-term value-focused patients who stays, refers, and of course, help you build your practice. Now, the fix is not just better AI at the front desk, it's better targeting before anyone even picks up that phone. Target the right audience, earn confidence faster, and of course, make scheduling obvious. Stick around because we have a fantastic resource from our team at Equa, a bit deeper into the conversation. Right. Now, let's take a quick look at our key discussion points for the session. First, we are going to cut through the noise to see what AI actually looks like in practice today. And then we'll identify 4 areas of maximum impact. Then we'll get into the risk and compliance of things, things that keeps you up all night. And finally, we'll give you the AI roadmap to ensure that your implementation doesn't stall. And let's meet the panelists that are going to help us through this discussion. Right. So first up, we have Mackenzie Limtiaco. She's a partner success at Mango Voice, and she helps dental practices optimize their business communications so that they never miss a patient opportunity. Mackenzie, it's great to have you on the panel.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. And joining us next is David Bolden, CEO and co-founder of Arise Solutions. David helps multi-location dental groups deploy voice AI and automation to increase ROI without disrupting their existing workflows. David, it's great to have you on the panel.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. And finally, we have Rushan Disanaika, Business Development Manager at Rinse AI. Rushan helps dental teams move beyond the hype to build lasting AI habits that make adoption practical and, of course, measurable. Rushan, it's great to have you here on the panel.
Thank you, sir.
Right then. Let's get into our main round of Q&As. And the first one I got for you is it's for McKinsey. Which dental AI uses are moving from vendor promise to routine practice when owners compare them with daily scheduling and, of course, communication pressure? McKinsey, over to you.
Yeah, well, dental practices are under constant pressure from missing their phone calls, there's staffing shortages, after hour scheduling, and then patient communication overload. So, AI receptionists and voice agents are becoming routine because they directly solve those problems with their workflow. And what makes these tools super sticky is that they address those business pain points where, missed calls can mean missed revenue. And
Mm.
when you're not answering those calls, you can lose an opportunity. So having an AI agent in place to be able to gather the information even and acknowledge a patient could really help you there. And
Mm.
then there is a lot of short staffing right now and understaffing in the industry as well. So, I mean, from traveling to conferences and speaking with the staff, even this past weekend at CDA, it seems like that is a very big problem, and a lot of people are answering the phones and stepping in. So, being able to help that burnout in that sense too is also great.
Mm.
And then also just the inconsistent patient response times with phone calls. So that's another thing that I think that it solves. And also having a dental specific AI is becoming more important because the AI will understand the terminology and urgency for getting those scheduled and rather than just the call center automation.
Okay. Now, how do we ensure that AI doesn't sound robotic and turn off a long-term patient who might expect that personal touch?
Is that also directed at me?
Yes,
Oh
yes. Just
yeah.
to follow up.
Yeah, I mean for Mango our AI, we've trained it to know the terminology and ask questions. So it doesn't
Mm.
sound so robotic. When you call ours and it actually sounds like a real human talking to you.
Mm.
So there's definitely ways that you can train your AI and make it not so robotic.
Check. So, of course, the main in use cases for AI right now, as you mentioned, are missed calls. Um, ensuring that we don't miss revenue out there, and of course, addressing the understaffed situation as well, because everyone is trying to get on that call, but especially when it's after hours, it's more difficult. And yeah, that specificity to dental and the industry that you're working in, it's key. So really glad to know that there is a solution like Mango out there that can address all of those questions and perhaps even more. Let's see what Mango can do as we go along the discussion. Now, David, where does AI adoption first break for front desk teams when missed calls, follow-ups, and of course, those appointment gaps pile up?
Yeah, I think it breaks before it starts. I think
Yeah.
the big issue is that when building your workflow, the AI has to replicate what you'd want your best employee, your best team member to do. The breaks happen, I believe, when you don't have enough information in terms of how calls should be routed, how emergencies should be handled, how doctors should be informed, how you triage. Those are all things that AI is able to do. And also I think it breaks as well when you don't have an internal champion. You need someone who is an internal champion inside the organization that has a holistic look, and then you're
Mhm.
able to adopt the AI so it reflects what the goals of the practice are and where you're trying to build from there.
So, two things, right? The workflow and then, of course, the internal champion. How do you know that a workflow is ready for AI adoption?
Well, two things. You have to spend the time in terms of spending the time with the team in terms of how that workflow works, how they like to work, what is the best outcome for them. And then from there, that's where you create the workflow to make sure that it's working correctly. And also, you have to do a lot of testing. There should be internal
Mhm.
testing. There should be looking for what those edge cases are so that
Mhm.
when it is live, it's able to respond in a way that you'd want it. As Mackenzie said, and you mentioned earlier, there's you don't want it to be robotic. You want it to have understand not only the terms, but you also want it to understand how you'd want someone to react. So whether it's empathy, if someone's calling they're in pain, someone may not want to speak to the AI, so you need to be able to have those transfers. So all those are all the things that, if that happens up front, that increases the chances that you're going to have a successful deployment.
Check. Now, with regards to the internal champion, right? What's their role exactly like, and how are you taking in their own feedback, right? As a practice leader, practice owner, what are you looking for from this internal champion?
Well, the internal champion has to have that motivation to want it to work. And obviously, we're talking to people who, one, they either are very concerned about service levels. So for them, it's a point of pride and it's part of branding that their service levels have to be high. Also, there's a realization that, no matter what technology you're in whatever sector you're in, you have to have the return on investment. So therefore, they're looking at what is going to, this successful implementation, how's that going to help our practice? How's that going to help our revenue? Or in the case of DSO, how's that's going to help our return on investment? And then what you're looking for them is just the availability or access to the information that you need to in order to build out a proper AI,
Hmm.
whether it's patient intake or whether it's outbound calling.
Check. So, the first thing to definitely break when you are adapting AI is your workflow. If it's not strong enough and it's not already adapted to the best outcome for the team, and then, of course, driven by the internal champion, probably makes it a lot more smoother and then gives you a lot more of a proactive feedback loop of how things are progressing. Okay. Thanks for that, David. Now, Rushan, what are some of the signals that tells a practice that AI is useful now and not just impressive in a demo?
Yeah, so AI is useful when it solves repetitive operational friction, right? So if it looks impressive in a demo, that's all well and good. But going again on David's points, really strong on those points is if, first of all, you don't actually know your workflow and operational pain that you're trying to
Mm,
solve, it's pretty much useless in my opinion, because you haven't sort of started with where is the pain that you really want to solve, and you haven't done it in a small frictional way. So
mm,
you're not going to sort of solve everything overnight. You just really sort of got to figure out what are the strong signals for repeated tasks that are happening.
mm,
Like if we just start on like small things, patient
mm,
communication in regards to just written communication, SOP retrieval, SOP writing, onboarding, admin summaries. Starting somewhere small in regards to some of the operational pain can give you an idea of, yes, okay, what's the workflow pain? How's the workflow work? What does my team do? And then you sort of break things down into, okay, let's start here, 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 and here. And implementing as Mackenzie and David have said around voice agents, for example, like the first stage of that is getting everyone on board as to why you're doing this,
mm,
including your patients, right? Like
mm,
the testing phase and the demo phase should be really start workflow pain, get everyone on board, the why, and then move into, say, a demo. What are my outcomes out of that demo? And what are not just the champions, but the people behind it that are going to give me the right feedback to know we've got the right thing in place. Like a good demo shows you possibilities, but good implementation survives throughout the practice lifecycle in terms of using that using AI.
Now, regarding that why, right? Well, I'm curious to know when would you say the why is sufficient, right? You've whether it be the patients or else whether it be your team has sufficiently understood the why of your implementation process. When do you think it's sufficient?
It's sufficient when really everybody is on board in some way, right? So you everyone's going to have different opinions of AI. Patients,
Hmm.
your team, yourself. Everyone's also going to have different workflows in their minds of what is the right way of doing things. If you can get everyone on board to start that the journey is happening, that's where you've got that buy-in, and you're going to have disagreements or you're going to have agreements, but everyone's going, okay, we're good to go on this front. And
Mm.
figuring out the problem together as a team is going to not just get you better implementation and adoption, but it's just going to get everyone's buying on that journey. Give the demo a chance, right? Like I've actually had practices that have implemented voice agents that have just implemented them.
Okay.
As in, hey, here's the phone line, we're going to put it in. Like it's not the way to do things. You've really, like, going back to what David said, that like it's really got to really understand why we're doing this first, and
Check.
make sure the
So,
team knows why, right? Everyone knows why, including patients. Including patients. Some of the best feedback you'll get is from patients.
right. And wow, I mean, of course, making the operational pain be frictionless as possible is key. And like you mentioned, the why is really important for the buy-in from both patients as well as from your team when you're doing the adoption. So, really great points there, Rushan. Now, Mackenzie, how should leaders decide between faster patient communication and tighter human review when sensitive patient information is involved?
Yeah, definitely. Well, just noting that not all of the patient interactions over the phone carry the same level of sensitivity on those calls. So,
Mm.
with AI, there are a lot of low risk calls, appointment scheduling, confirmations, offer us hours, basic questions about the practice. And then also making sure to set up those guardrails of when someone wants to discuss their treatment plan or have clinical questions, that is where you would want to loop in your provider and have the human experience. So typically, an AI agent would say, that's great. You want to talk about that? Let me gather some information and let pass this over to a patient coordinator to take care of it from there. So that
Mhm.
way, the AI agent isn't discussing those sensitive topics because that is where things can go downhill if it's handled improperly in that way. So, there's still some risk there with AI where
Mhm.
you want to loop in your provider because your provider should be the person who is discussing those sensitive details about your treatment and whatnot.
Right. And from a standpoint of a practice owner listening in on this call, do they have to think about this, right? Are all because from Mango, I'm just using you as an example. You seem to have the guardrails, right? And well, when there's a specific, I suppose, a keyword is being said by the patient on the call, um, those guardrails come into place. Now, is this something that the practice owner should be actively asking the vendor? If you have these guardrails, if so, for what, or is it kind of an accepted feature at this point in stage?
I think for ours it is, but definitely when you're looking at multiple companies at once, those questions should definitely come up. You should definitely call individuals who have these in place so you can hear for yourself and test it out because what if you're calling in and you're having a true dental emergency and then there's no guardrail to say if you're having a true dental emergency, hang up and call 911. That should be
Mhm.
something that is in place. And even if you are experiencing pain, does the AI have the empathy, like David mentioned, to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're in pain"? There should be, definitely those guardrails in place, and I'm confident in ours, but those would be questions that I would have as a practice owner. Like, oh, what happens when a patient says this? Or what happens if they're trying to give too much information on their treatment, but the AI doesn't have that information at its fingertips. So definitely would ask those questions, yes.
Check. So that risk difference, even for an AI use case, of course, we got to understand that there are limits, good limits that AI should be bounded by. So make sure that you do check with your vendor before you bring it into the practice, that all these things are taken into consideration. Uh, Now, David, what filter helps a practice choose its first AI use case? Understaffing and revenue pressure?
Um, that can be it, even the most successful, and McKinsey would know this and Roshan as well, but even the most successful practice, they're not probably going to be able to answer all their calls. So the key that what we try to do is we look at three variables. One, we look at, and because we tend to focus on multi-locations and DSOs, we look for, well, what is the call recovery rate across the different practices? So if you have 20 practices, are you answering 96% of the calls or 86? What's that call recovery rate? Then what is the utilization rate? What is the revenue per chair? All those factors that go into see, well, do you have unused utilization within your group of practices? And what would that mean if you were able to get more people in those seats as well? And then we look at
Mhm.
the activation rate. How, a large practice may have a certain percentage of their practice that has not been called or cannot practically be called. And a lot of times the reactivation calls or recalls are something that happens in between time. So once you go through those filters as a beginning segment, the practice or the practice owner or the DSO can look and see, well, what is the most important variable from a return on investment? But then, as Rashan said, as also McKinsey said, what is that test going to be that is probably the lowest risk and have the most chance of success to begin with? And then that's where you go. And then the other thing I would say is that you also look at something that's not going to add additional work to the team, no matter what the technology in is. And it's just been true throughout history. If a tool adds more work, you're going to have some degree of resistance internally. So those are some of the factors we look at, and then that's basis by which, that filter is used to decide what to start with.
David, do you have any benchmarks, values on like what a call recovery rate is, utilization and reactivation rates are?
They depend upon we actually have a tool that we give out, and that tool actually has the rates for each of those things based upon, the location, the practice as well. So we find that, and it depends, if you have a group and they have, let's say they have a 80 or 90 something percent answer rate, but that 4 or 6% that is not being answered, when you take that across several locations, that could be the
Mhm.
difference of hundreds of thousands of lost revenue as well. So it really depends on the practice, the type of practice, and of course, different practices will have different types of rates they work for.
Check. Is this resource available for us?
Of course, it's something
Okay.
that we'd be glad to.
We'll circle back and send our registrants and attendees the specific resource that David has to check out where you're at in terms of your call recovery, utilization, and of course your reactivation. And like David mentioned, filtering based on the priorities of what I understood is, what is the highest reward you can get for the lowest risk, and how can you do it also not by adding more onto your team's plate as well. So fantastic points there, David. It's a great filtering framework. Now, Rushan, during a treatment presentation, what boundary tells the team where AI support ends and human explanation begins?
So AI, I guess, is useful for simplifying explanations, structuring information, perhaps drafting patient education, follow-ups, perhaps visual support, obviously in the clinical tools. Um, Emotional understanding, clinical judgment, like nuanced consent, like trust building conversations, it can't do that. That's my straight up opinion there, just can't do that. And that's where that human element is extremely important. Patients don't buy treatment plans, they buy confidence in the person delivering them. So, the moment the conversation becomes emotional rather than informational, that human element really needs to lead. And it sounds like even on the voice AI front, that's sort of a guardrail that has been spoken about here today. But it's the same as even if you're implementing an AI tool, like say even like a Copilot or a ChatGPT to help you with summaries, etc. is it's really just sort of taking out that mundane work, uh,
Mm,
but that human element is extremely important. The human in the loop is extremely important. It's actually also compliant to have that as well. So, I mean, if it's structuring communication or it's structuring or simplifying, say mundane tasks or specific tasks regarding that, no problem. But it's not going to take the responsibility of replacing a dentist or replacing staff from communicating empathetically and building trust with patients. That separation is extremely important.
mm. Building trust with patients. Um, why are you conservative about that when it comes to the AI standpoint? Do you not think that AI can build trust with the patient?
Look, I think we just need to understand like what is AI, right? So
Mhm.
as far as I know from my learnings, AI technically is a predictability model. You feed
That's
it
right.
a certain amount of information, you give it a certain amount of context, and it's going to give you a prediction, right? So say an answer to a question 70% of the time is Paris, 20% of the time it's London, and 10% of the time it's Sydney. 70% of that time, the answer is going to be this based on the training data, based on how it answers questions, etc. And you train AI, whether it's voice or image or anything very similarly in that regard. So does it know what coffee tastes like? Does it know what coffee feels like? Does it know what a croissant in Paris tastes like? No, it doesn't. So you're never going to get that connection from it at
Mm.
this point in time, right? The space is moving so quickly. Who knows? Might be drinking coffee soon enough. But that is really just like a simple, basic understanding from my point is using it as a predictability model and as a system to help with workflow pain up until the point of this is how we work with our patients now. So it's adding within that workflow. I think another point that David brought up that was extremely important is it extra work? 100%.
Mhm.
Like if it is extra work, this happened to me with training tools at the moment with practices, and they start to sort of roll their eyes and go, "Oh my God, this is not, we're not looking at okay, but now we've got a problem because we've got to take them on that why journey first, right?" But no, I am conservative about that because I just haven't really seen, and I'm happy for the panelists and any dentists that have that question. The question want to be answered there is it is actually going to build trust. And everyone's perception of AI as well, mate. Like,
Mm.
uh,
That's right.
everyone's perception is different. People might be excited about it. People might hate it. You just got to really, navigate that water very cautiously, I think.
Check. So the boundary for you, really where AI really, working on that mundane work,
Yeah.
is really that when it gets emotional, when it gets to that part, immediately it needs to be hand over back to the human in the loop.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Check. Amazing. Yeah, it's a great reminder. Definitely. I think like with how fast things are moving, we kind of assume that having AI, the shiniest new tool, automatically signals, you can trust us. But it,
Just on that point, real quickly about
yeah,
shiny new tools. I think sometimes there's a couple things. One, I feel that there's not a lot of, but there's a bit of anxiety and a little bit of fear of missing out a little bit. But also there's hey, this technology is just going to get better. Why should I get into it now? Actually
mhm,
goes back to the points that I think even Mackenzie and David are bringing up is why you'd start now and why you demo now and why you'd bring things in now is because of that workflow, the why, the bringing the
that's
team around a journey. And if it's something as simple, like let's start small, or you can go big, or whether if recalls and answering phones it's a problem for everyone. We have staff shortages here in Australia. It's a massive problem if you're going to do that, say on the weekends or after hours or where you're going to implement the system, don't sort of think that the technology is going to get better and better and better. It is, but
it is.
you being behind in regards to understanding how that journey
Mm,
happens,
mm,
you're
mm,
also going to
mm.
be behind there too. So by the time,
True.
say a practice has already implemented voice AI, say a practice has already implemented certain tools or done training with their teams, that compounds.
Like, oh,
That compounds and it compounds and compounds, and then the other guys are just sort of sitting on the fence, Fair enough. I understand the caution. I understand the conservative. I'm not jumping into this straight up too. There's a process. But then you go behind on that because you've got to actually start from designing the workflow, getting the pain, building the why with your teams. Uh, just want to, point out. I hope it helps.
Appreciate that. Really do appreciate that. Because yeah, we might be on the fence, not sure where to begin, but beginning somewhere will get you used to, yeah, what this innovation is all about, right? And staying in that conversation is much more important than just waiting until you might not even recognize how good it is if you haven't already been in the conversation for a moment.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great point there, Rashan. And before we continue the conversation, there's a quick one I would like to share with every one of y'all. There we go. Right. Now, for the past half hour, we've been discussing what AI is doing inside your practice, front desk, scheduling, um, all real, all worth doing. And there's a second AI conversation that hasn't fully surfaced tonight, and it's the half most owners haven't truly reckoned with yet. Um, you're using AI in your practice, and right now, this week, your patients are using AI to find one. Different AI, different conversation, same shift. They're asking ChatGPT for a dentist near them. They're reading Google's AI overview before they ever click a link. And of course, AI is answering with specific practice names. The question every owner on this call should know the answer to tonight is when AI gives that answer in your zip code, is your name in it? Or is it sending your next patient down the road? So, this is exactly what Echo Marketing, our sponsor tonight, has been built for. They run AEO, answer engine optimization, alongside their core marketing work. And they're opening a small number of complimentary practice growth sessions for our owners on this call. 45 minutes, one on one, normally a $900 valued session, completely complimentary for you tonight. You walk away with four things. First, whether your practice shows up when patients asks, AI for a dentist. And secondly, the competing practices AI is recommending to your patients right now instead of you. And third, a full online trust audit. So rankings, page speed, reviews, the practical stuff. And fourth, a 3, 6, and 12-month visibility plan built just for your market. So, how can you grab this opportunity? Well, three ways to do so, all on your screen right now. You can go ahead and scan that QR code, or else visit the URL underneath it, or just click the registration link the team has dropped into our Zoom chat here. Echo releases these in small batches because each session is custom built per practice. Now, they do fill up a bit quickly, so book your session tonight. It's really worth doing it. And with that being said, let's continue on. There we go. Now we're going to move in to a open floor Q&A discussion. So this is where you can drop your own questions in the Q&A or else even in the chat. It's fine. Or you can raise your hand and I'll just allow you to speak live with your own questions directed at the panelists. While you get warmed up, I do have a couple of questions from our registrants here. So I'm going to start with those. We got Ashley. Ashley asking where AI is actually making a difference in the back office, specifically in claims processing, clinical narrative writing, billing, and reporting. Is this where AI is delivering real-time savings, or is it creating more review work than it eliminates? How about David? Would you like to start off
Yeah,
on this?
well, that's a great question. I think one of the things that we're seeing a great deal and that we are implementing is the ability for AI to do work that there's been a big improvement from an enterprise level on browser automation. So all that means is AI that has a capacity to go into a browser or go to an app and be able to click through it as a human would do and to find that information and then put it somewhere else. So when you think about insurance and pre-authorization work, the ability for
Mhm.
the AI to go through your practice management system and say, well, this is a client who could qualify for like a 5 service crown or who could qualify for a certain procedure that would require pre-authorization from an insurance company. The AI can go through after hours, go through that client base, find who those candidates, find the codes, find who they are, and then from them set it up. And then for the human in the loop to then be able to send off to the insurance company or say, yes, this is a particular candidate for this procedure. So I think um, on the admin side, anything that can reduce the amount of work that someone is doing where they're just spending time inside the PMS or just spending time inside the insurance portal, that could be all be automated right now. And I think that's going to be where we're going to see some very great gains. And where from an office perspective and from a team buying standpoint, that only allows the team to be able to work on the more high value work where the AI during the nighttime, let's say, is surfacing that type of administrative work, which is really hard for anybody to do in long hours of time.
Of course, that's a great answer there. Browser optimization. Um, wow. Mackenzie, do you have anything to add on to that by any chance?
For the back office workflow, I do not.
Okay,
I
so
feel
that's
like just for at least RAI, it's just kind of gathering the data for scheduling purposes and then redirecting billing and treatment questions for to loop in someone.
totally understandable. That's where Mango excels in. Rushan, do you have anything to add to this by any chance with regards to the back office?
Yeah, so operational AI is again about building systems around those particular problems. Like what Dave was talking about, that's a really great use case. Um, but in regards to, say, specific parts of the operations side, so say onboarding, say um, SOPs, either it's infection control SOPs or particular SOPs for a part of the practice. Those need to just sort of be segmented, and then you
Mhm.
can use AI, whether it be a tool that's integrated within um, your software, and not just PMS, but say your operating system, say, your Windows operating system, you might have, say, Copilot to help you with those things, or you might have a Google backend. It's just figuring out where your information and data lives and then sort of segmenting it and arranging it into specific points. And then what do you actually want it to take over
Mhm.
or help you with? The autonomous thing is definitely something, I guess, that they continue to get better and better at, but that does require you to either make simple automations or potentially complex automations, depending on where all the data lives. It could just be within the PMS, and there might be tools you can just integrate onto that. Or you can actually go ahead and make and customize things within the tools in the market that will help with specific segments of the back office. There's lots of different things in back office that can be helped.
Wow, amazing.
Augmentation though, right? It's for me, it's augmentation still. And I don't know if I
Mm-mm.
sound too conservative, but it's augmentation. It's not automation for me. It's like, how can you augment certain things and then have that human in the loop that comes in and takes over from there. Also, as we know from a compliance perspective, patient health information, like how much of this stuff touches it, it's got to very, very, very careful there, not just for the patients, but also your own staff members and their personal information. So all that's just got to be, you got to think about all those things as well.
Amazing. So, Ashley, hope you took something available valuable over here, especially browser optimizations as Rushan mentioned, your onboarding and SOPs, where they live, and how easy is it to get to? Because that's a struggle sometimes. You might have a lot of SOPs for everything, but just to get to that one, it might take a day or two someday. So that's great use case right there. So uh, we got another question from Tony Michelle. All right. Tony Michelle is asking a very practical question that a lot of independent practice owners share. What are the easy affordable AI tools, not the enterprise platforms that can handle scheduling and help patients complete their medical history before they walk in the door. Where do you actually start if your budget is tight? Um, you know what? I'm going to give this off to Mackenzie.
Yeah, I mean, for scheduling and your patient forms, typically you can use your practice management software to use that or one of their third-party trusted vendors to do that. Now, speaking for Mango, we partner with a bunch of companies like that. If they're using Dentrix, Henry Schein has a bunch of different features that can do just that. When it comes to scheduling with AI, that's kind of where it gets a little tricky because, you
Hmm.
know, a lot of offices want control over their schedule, and having an AI agent booking a patient, sure, you confirm the patient name and date of birth, but you know, if you're booking it on a Saturday night for a Monday at 8 a.m., it can get a little tricky to know that the office didn't place that there themselves or use one of those communication tools to do it. So there are definitely some affordable add-ons out there, and I can definitely give you a list of recommendations. But starting with your actual practice management system and who they recommend would be great for scheduling and patient forms.
Right. That's great because otherwise you start with the vendor and then you figure out, oh no, it doesn't, work with my PIMS, and then
Hmm.
it's just it's a
You
whole
want it to
nother ball
integrate for
game.
sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's start with the PIMS and see what they're working with, and then do a bit of a demo over there. David, do you have anything to add on to this?
No, I think Mackenzie is correct. It's always best, I think, to go where the less friction is, and if the PMS system is has that tool, which likely it does, or if they have a vendor that is also available. But we are also living in a time where software is no longer the moat. We are living in a time where uh, someone inside the dental practice who has an idea on how something could be done better, there is actually the capacity now to write that software and be able to write it at a level that would work and most likely could integrate, whether it's through the API or whether, because most of practice have open APIs that allow you to connect, or whether it's through another bridge. So I would just say that always start with the PMS system. Always look at who those vendors are. But the next thing is, well, and I think you'll see more of it. And I see it happen all the time. There's a lot of dentists that are starting companies and that are based upon providing some type of software solution. And I do believe we're living in a time where that's going to be possible for more and more people at an affordable cost as well.
Check. Right. Amazing. Thank you very much, panelists, for really engaging with us here. And our registrants who submitted those questions. Really appreciate that. And I hope that you got the answers you were looking for. Of course, what was her name? Tony Michelle. Use your PIMS. Start there. And as David mentioned, there's some great software being developed by dentists out there. But of course, I think can't be overstressed. Start with your PIMS and see what integrates as frictionless as possible onto that, and then work your way backwards from there. Now, Mackenzie, when a patient calls after hours, what handoff between AI and staff keeps the next morning from becoming a cleanup?
So I always say that you want to capture structured, not conversational outcomes. So Rashawn, you mentioned earlier, like when it gets emotional in those conversations, that's when you want to loop in a real team member. And that is exactly right. I think it's really important for AI agents to gather all the information and let the patient know, okay, we will have a patient team coordinator get back to you on our next business day to book their appointment. But nowadays, people aren't leaving voicemails anymore. So the AI receptionist on the after hours on the weekends is extremely important because what we found with us is that people are actually leaving messages. So with that and asking those questions, patient name, patient date of birth, reason for the call they're trying to schedule, that way when they get their not just a transcript, but action items on Monday morning. They come in and look at it and it says, okay, so we have a new patient that wants to come in, tooth pain, upper right part of their mouth. They would like to come in on Tuesday morning. Pain's pretty mild there. So that way you know exactly why this patient called over the weekend and you know kind of going in back into that call how to navigate that. So you definitely want to just have the AI gather all of the information. Don't get too conversational, and then make it be able to be a clean convertible, I guess, converting from someone just calling into a patient. Because yeah, if there's just a voicemail, they could just Google another practice down the street, you know?
Hmm. Right. So when you're talking about this, I'm just thinking to myself, I'm calling in, if I called in my dentist, I might ask them, how are they doing? How are things going? Especially if it has been one of my, family dentists for a couple of generations. I might know, okay, Mackenzie at the front desk, how are things with, your family, or your dog, whatnot. All of that gets sideways, right?
Hmm.
We're now getting straight to business. Is there something lost there?
I think just redirecting it, because you can acknowledge, like, hope your day's great too. Did you need some help with scheduling an appointment or something like that, just to redirect the conversation to make it more proactive. But you, I mean, if it's just an after hours call that you're trying to gather as much information to make it more helpful for the team when they're back in. But that's great if they're, just chatting it up when they're calling normally on Monday to Friday.
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps it might not be, the most workflow efficient, and
Hmm.
maybe you will value their time when you're there in person, right? Now you've done the booking, you've done the schedule, and you're there in person at that time. You can have that wonderful conversation about, how their dog is doing and whatnot, uh, instead of taking away that valuable call time. So, uh, that's a great substitution. Uh, you know, and now before I move on to the next question, Ashley, our registrant who had previously asked that question with regards to the back office, I believe, was it the back office? Yes. Um, Now has asked how how can AI apply on claims, attachments and narratives to claims? I think this is a follow-up to your answer, David. Uh, would you be able to answer that?
Sure, yeah. On the claim side, the insurance can you can have an insurance reconciliation module that uses the same type of browser automation that we talked about that would see those claims, those insurance coming back, see whether the claim amount is going to be the same as what has been asked, surface those. So therefore, maybe it's a code that has been wrong. That so the team that has all the information, the team members are then able to say, okay, well, that's where we see a variance there. So the same way that we can do it on to go into insurance portal is the same way you can do it on the insurance reconciliation. It will be able to look at all the insurance reconciliations that come in, see what the amount that was requested, what the amount that the insurance company says they're going to pay, look at the variance. And again, when you're looking at multiple locations, a variance of 2% or 3% or 5%, or whether even if you're just one practice that is busy, those variances make a difference in terms of bottom line, your return on investment, your business profitability. So the insurance reconciliation is a wonderful opportunity for these browser type automations to be able to work, and they are being done that in many other places.
Amazing. And I think insurance reconciliations might be, just might be, one of the most admin heavy task works within a practice. So it's really great to know that these things are getting solved. And I really do hope, Ashley, you got an answer, and more so inspiration to really get things started. Because as Rushan also mentioned earlier on, getting things started is much more important than waiting until everything is perfected. So of course, with understandable conservation as well. Now, David, what roadmap logic helps multi-location practices phase AI adoption when systems and team readiness vary by site?
Well, I think I think I touched on in the beginning,
Hmm.
you have to find those locations. First of all, find the most advantageous use case for what you're going to do, and then
Hmm.
look for those ones where you do have the internal champions, where you do have the opportunity, and then measure and see what the result is on a few before you do escalate to more locations. So I think it's key to maybe start with 5 locations or 4 locations, what the case would be, before you roll out in terms of a larger basis.
David, would you start with your best office as the pilot or your struggling office to prove it works?
Well, it depends on the financial, I guess, implications. If your uh, struggling office is the one that needs to be brought up because it needs to hit returns in order to be profitable, in order to maintain, the staff levels you have, that may be the one that has the most, um, fundamental inherent issues that probably with the proper workflow and with the right application of whatever AI solution is going to have the biggest benefit or biggest. So I think I would actually start with ones that have known problems and see
Hmm.
how the AI can address that. And if it works for them, then it most likely is going to work across your network.
Check. So it's a profitability conversation there.
Profitability as well as, and I don't want to get it lost, and although we talk a lot about the return on investment, also from a patient satisfaction standpoint, if you have a practice and people are not able to pick up the phone and they are leaving messages and it's taken a long time for those messages to be returned, then it becomes a convenience issue for that practice. Or another application, real quickly, is where practices are spending a lot of money on ads, and but there's no way to attribute it when that ad comes in. The person's not being called. With AI now, you can call within 90 seconds of someone filling out that ad, and that makes a big return for the practice as well. So I would always say look where you're going to be giving convenience to your patient, and then look to in terms of where you're going to have a financial benefit from doing this.
Mm, there we go. That's a great benchmark. 9 seconds within, filling up a lead gen form. Yeah, if it had been filled up over the weekend on a regular, practice where AI automation isn't implemented, you're getting back to them on Monday. Uh, they might have gone already and got their issue fixed and scheduled elsewhere. If someone calls me within 90 seconds over Monday situation, you can do the math. And that's where we are at. Now, Rushan, what observable team behavior proves that AI habits are sticking after the initial launch excitement fades?
When it becomes pretty much invisible, right? I mean, when it be literally becomes part of what they do. That is when it's slotted into the workflow correctly, it's slotted into the practice correctly, everyone's working with it, and it's sort of continuously being used within the workflow. That's when it's working. Um, when it's sort of there as a tool and it hasn't been touched in a while, or it's working in the background, but then the human in the loop stuff is breaking down,
Mm.
then you've just got to sort of recalibrate what's going on and fix it at the point of where it's dropping off. I mean, I think that point that you brought up, David, about like ad spend, and you sort of have all these ads coming in, but no one's getting followed up. So you've got huge success at one point, and that success is just dwindling out. That's really where, if the curve is going that way from an AI implementation, then we got to recalibrate and refix it. And you got to be wanting to do that, especially if you put investment behind it. Um, but that's why I think we've all spoke about starting with what's the problem, what's the workflow, what's the why with your team and your patients, and then sort of going into use case by use case where you're going to solve those problems, and going on those micro journeys and not sort of major, we're going to just put AI into everything, for example. That's the best way to success, and then it just sort of becomes part of the workflow, becomes invisible, becomes what we do, rather than, oh, I've got to use the AI for this. Oh, I forgot how to do that. What that doesn't really help me, and that resistance starts to build, and it just goes nowhere.
Hmm. Check. Now, I'm curious, when you see these habits slipping, is it better to retrain the whole team or just focus on perhaps that AI champion in the office?
It's a really good question. It's it it's about, I think, bringing it up with the individual from a help standpoint. Where can we help you? And perhaps it's talking to the champion around how they can help that person, so train the trainer. Um, but I think it's a mix of both.
Mm,
Start with so the person and the resistance element, and find out the why behind that and what they can do, what they're willing to do to be part of the whole sort of collective team. But then bringing the team in as well, right? You kind of don't want to single people out in front of anybody. That's
yeah.
going to be more, I think, a private conversation to bring their confidence up, right? Because everyone, again, has their own opinions and emotional standing when it comes to AI and whether or not it's helpful, etc. So you do that initially. I think it's bringing a champion in to help that person, and then bringing the whole team together to sort of discuss successes and how other people are using it to give maybe that person more help.
Mm,
Singling out, though, sort of in a team environment definitely doesn't help.
check.
It's a mix
So,
of both.
definitely, when you're looking at your team's behavior, and if you're seeing that, well, if you're not seeing friction against AI, well, that's a good sign. Once you've implemented it, and it becomes completely invisible, things are getting done through AI, augmented, as Rushan just mentioned earlier on, and part of what they do. That's a telltale sign that things are going smooth. If anything is deviating from that fact, time to recalibrate. Now, before we end the session here, I do want to go around the panel and ask for one final key takeaway. What is the golden rule for AI adoption? Mackenzie, let's start with you, 30 seconds or less.
Golden rule for adoption is to train on it and be open to using it. Um, because as we move into this world of AI and the buzzword, learning as much as you can about the product and trying to implement it and getting feedback, I would say, be a golden
Mm.
rule.
Train, use, get feedback. All right. David, what's the golden rule for AI adoption?
I think I would look at customization. You have to, the AI that is used has to speak to what you require, what you're looking for, and has to, as I say, work back from what the problem is and what your goal is, and then implement the AI so it's reflective of your reality as opposed to something that's just off the shelf that may do 50% of the work, but that other 50% is going to leave you so frustrated that you may have a wasted investment because it didn't reflect what you really needed.
Check. So absolutely, that cannot be overstated. That customization can make or break the whole adoption, and it might just, you know, reduce that team friction you might already be facing with the AI adoption. Um, right. Uh, Rashawn, golden nugget here.
Um, so I think it's starting with problem, the why, the rollout, and the outcomes that we all want together as a team. I think Mackenzie and David touched on the other points that are very important first before you go down the journey. Those things just need to be, I think, concrete for you as a practitioner, you and your team, and then
Mm,
just figure out the use cases that you want to start with. Right? So just really, it's really about, I think, planning and understanding everyone's buy-in to reduce as much friction moving forward. And then all the points that Mackenzie and David just come on top of that, really.
amazing. Thank you very much. Focus on the outcome together.
Yeah.
together. That's the important part. Right on. All right. Now, here we go. Yeah. So before we close, one last reminder, Echo Marketing's complimentary practice growth session for our attendees. When patients in your city search for the services that you offer, make sure you're the one that is found and trusted. Links in the chat, book your session before it fills up. With that being said, right, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Mackenzie, David, Rashawn, for truly sharing your expertise. And thank you to everyone who joined us and invested in the future of your practice. A quick feedback survey will pop up on your browser as you exit this webinar. Please do take 30 seconds to fill it out because it'll allow us to keep bringing in quality events to you and really improve our own workflow from our end. And panelists, do stay on the line for a quick live debrief. And to everyone else, keep innovating, keep caring, and we'll see you at the next Thriving Dentist Expert Panel. Good night, everyone.